Stephen, how you doing, mate? So good to see you. How are things in Toowoomba this morning, mate?
Yeah, really good. Thanks for having me on. It's such a pleasure to be with you. But yeah, Toowoomba's going pretty good. It's a nice sunny day up here. It's been pretty weird. We've had like yesterday was just a weird, miserable sort of rainy day, and then the day before was so hot. So you never know what you're going to get. You get four seasons in a day up here, which is good on top of the mountain. So
That's it. Yeah. So for those listening to the podcast, not familiar with Toowoomba, it's an elevated city in southeast Queensland. Probably, what would you say, about an hour and a half inland from the coast? Would you say, Stephen?
yeah,
From
probably from Brisbane is probably a bit over an hour, and then depending on which coast can be about 2 hours, two and a bit.
yeah.
I think they say it's the biggest inland city in Australia that's not a capital or something like
Yeah.
that, other than
Yep.
Canberra. So
Yeah,
yeah,
no, yeah, absolutely. So you just mentioned it's a couple of hours away from, depending on which beaches you go to. This is a great question to ask, especially a Queenslander. Which do you prefer, Gold Coast or Sunshine Coast? Where would you prefer to go to the beach?
I prefer Gold Coast,
Wow. Okay.
uh, particularly Coolangatta, right on the border.
Yep.
That's probably a place we went as kids with our family growing up. We just spent all of our summer holidays there, so it's like a second home. Really, when I go there, I just feel instantly at home and recharged, and it's just a nice sort of quiet, family-friendly spot. So I do prefer there, but I mean, yeah, I think all of Australian beaches are pretty nice. So we're pretty
Yeah.
blessed for choice around here.
You can't go wrong with Australian beaches, that's for sure.
No,
But I'm
yeah,
with you, mate. Coolangatta. I'm actually a Sunshine Coast fan, but that's
okay,
because I live on the north side of Brisbane. But Coolangatta is a great spot. In particular, I love Rainbow Bay. It's one of my
yeah,
favorite beaches down there on the border. So, well, listen, let's dive into a couple of questions, either or questions. We called this segment at the beginning of the podcast 60 seconds with Perko. Sometimes it takes a bit longer than 60 seconds, but
yeah.
either way, we're going to ask you a few questions just to get to know you a little bit better. So, first question for you, coffee or tea?
Um, I like both, but I think I prefer coffee. A
Okay.
coffee person. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, very cool. Well, you're in a great city for that because Toowoomba's got a
yeah.
great coffee scene. So, Apple
It's
or PC?
everywhere.
Yeah, it is.
Uh, Apple probably. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And beaches or mountains?
Uh, Even though we were just talking about beaches, I think I like the idea of mountains a bit better. Maybe because I
Yeah.
live on one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, you're in a great spot for that for sure. Dogs or cats? Are you a dogs guy or a cats person?
Um, I really like both, but I probably at the moment I'll have to give the edge to cats because I recently got married, and when we got married, I inherited some cats, and they could be listening outside that door. So I'll have to say cats to be safe in case they
Yes,
hate me.
yes. And that's the difference with cats and dogs. Dogs will put up with anything and come back
Yeah,
and love you no matter what. Cats, not so much on that.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I think because I really like both. They both have their good and bad parts. I wouldn't say for the purpose of this I'll give it to cats, but I love both. I think cats are really good because they're so solitary. You don't need to do anything, just feed them and they're good. But they both, when you're down or whatever, they'll come and give you a cuddle or whatever. And sometimes dogs, they can be too annoying because they're just in your face all the
All
time.
the
And you
time.
think, dude,
Yes.
just give me can't you just go and sleep over there by yourself
I've,
like a cat does? So
I've got a 5-month-old puppy right now, and wherever I am, he wants to be right there at the same time.
yeah.
So, Netflix or YouTube, mate? Which would you prefer?
Netflix.
Yeah. Okay. Call or text?
I actually like calling. Especially like my wife is Spanish, so sometimes our communication gets a little bit messed up on text. So I find it just so much easier to call, and I like texting is easy, but if I'm having a proper conversation, I like to call
Yeah.
somebody.
No, it's good. Podcast or music? If you're plugging in, what are you listening to?
Um, Probably podcasts. Actually, I listen to more. I love music, but probably a podcast.
Yeah,
And
very.
I find it so easy to just work and listen and do things, and you can just be listening to somebody talking, and
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it's great. All right. Passenger or driver when you're going on a trip?
Uh, Depends on the driver, but I normally do like to be the passenger.
Yeah. Okay. You like to
Relax
let
and
someone else? Yep.
yeah, but I mean it depends. I really, but I'd say passenger.
Okay. Are you a saver or a spender?
I'd say probably more a saver.
Okay. Hopefully, you both have at least a little bit of discretionary funds to be able to get out and enjoy the coffee culture in Toowoomba. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, it
When it
depends
comes,
what it is. Like I'm a guitarist, so if it's guitar
okay.
parts, I'm just like, we've got money for that. I can buy that. Yeah. But if it's something else, it's not. We got to save. We got to save money. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right. When it comes to your toilet paper roll at your house, and this is like the most important question, I think, of the ones I've given you so far, is it over or under when you hang it on the toilet roll?
I feel like I'm going to get in trouble, but I'm an under.
You're an under guy. Oh
I'm an
no.
under.
Oh no.
I'm a bit of a bad boy.
Okay. I'd have to fix it when I come over to your place. If I was using your bathroom, I'd have to turn it over and then
Again,
in
it's
trouble.
not a big deal to me, like either, but
Yeah.
I feel going under, if you go over and it's too full, it breaks off too early. So I like to go under because then you have control of how much you need.
You get.
Because
Yeah.
sometimes you need more than
Isn't that the truth? Sometimes you do. Well, Stephen, I got to tell you, mate, first off the rank, before I even ask any questions, my anti-haste t-shirt is specifically the black one, the Live Slow Die Old, which I'm actually wearing. If you're watching the YouTube version of our podcast, you can see it. But if you're just listening to the podcast, you got to go over to YouTube, and we'll give you information about Antihaste Clothing line later in the podcast. But mate, the t-shirt's so soft. I love the attention to detail, the little tag down on the bottom of the t-shirt. I love the length of the t-shirts, like they're a little bit longer. I love that. And I love the neck opening. They're not, many of the t-shirts I buy these days are a bit too wide, but this one is just perfect. And I absolutely love. So before we get though to the t-shirts, and not just t-shirts now, I mean, you guys got a whole line of clothing items that you guys are putting out, which I can't wait to talk about. But before we get to that, I would love for people listening to the podcast just to get to know a little bit about your background. So are you from Toowoomba originally? Where'd you grow up? What was family life like? Maybe just give us a bit of your story.
Yeah, sure. Not originally from Toowoomba. Like I was born here, but I grew up in a smaller town about 40 kilometers. I think it's southwest, called Pittsworth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot smaller than Toowoomba, obviously. But yeah, that's where I grew up, and it was really fun. Like, I don't know, I'm really glad I grew up out there because I had such a fun childhood. Like we could really do whatever we want. Like I see even now living in Toowoomba, I think, man, if I had kids, I wouldn't let my kids do what we used to do. Like it's sort of like what you watch in those movies where you'd get on your bikes in the holidays and you're just riding around all the time. You could walk to your friend's house, and you'd only be in sort of late primary school, and your parents would feel safe enough for you to just wander around and do all that. So yeah, I grew up out there with my mum and dad and brother and sister. I'm a middle child, which apparently I have all the typical things of a middle child.
Okay. What's some of the standouts, the characteristics that you have that people say, oh, that's typical middle child behavior or whatever?
I think I like everything to be fair. Like I'm even Steven. Like if my brother's getting more, or like my sister, I'm like, no, we all need to have equal things, or you feel like you're left out, even though you probably get just as much attention as everybody else.
Yeah. Your justice, it sounds like your justice meter is pretty high. So
yeah,
you've got that
right
on the radar. Yeah. So you grew up as a middle child, and did you move from that small country town at some point?
Yeah. After school, I was working out there as an apprentice chef, actually.
Okay.
And then I sort of, didn't enjoy that as much. And I used to get really bad dermatitis on my hands and stuff. So I sort of thought, I need to find something else. And then I got a job with my brother, just laboring with him. He was a greenkeeper. So I was doing sort of that sort of thing. And so I moved into town with him.
Yeah.
And then I've sort of been, I think, here ever since. I maybe would kind of move back to save a bit of money for a year or two, and then have been back in Toowoomba. So it's only half an hour's drive. So it's pretty. It's sort of like you grow up in Toowoomba anyway.
Yeah,
when you're that close.
Yeah, you got to.
I've been here.
Do all your shopping and go to the movies, all that sort of stuff in the big city anyway. So yeah. What was life growing up like for you? Fairly cruisy, as far as family life, or have many challenges as a kid or a teenager, young adult growing up?
As a kid, not so much. I think growing up in a small town, you can sort of be like a big fish in a small pond. I think I played a lot of sport growing up. Like when I was younger, it was soccer and cricket, and then older, a lot of rugby league. And
Yeah.
I just loved rugby league. That's what I did as a kid. I just, because there's not much to do out there, so
Yeah.
I played that, and was lucky enough to play in some pretty like high level games and tour down to New South Wales and Sydney and play some junior NRL teams and
Okay.
things like that. So that was what I loved as a kid. And then probably more as I grew older and sort of when you're getting out of high school and sort of coming to the end of grade 12, and like it's that typical sort of angst I guess you have when you're a teenager and you don't really know. I have never known what I wanted to do. I still, like, I do now, but it took me a long time to find that. And I think as I don't know, something just clicked in my brain when I was in high school. Like I used to think, I'm in a small town, 90% of these people are going to move away. Um, I just had this realization that like, this, even though I've grown up with all my friends since kindy, like that's the one, it was really cool growing up in a small town and you have friends from kindergarten right through to grade 12. Like that's pretty rare.
Yeah.
But where it was the same group of friends all growing up. And then I just sort of realized like these guys aren't going to talk to me after school finished. Like this is it. Like this is going to be different and I'm going to have to move out and I'm going to be a small fish in a big pond and
Yeah.
all that. And I think maybe I sort of, because I thought that, it probably came to be, and I probably isolated myself before anyone else could isolate.
Yeah.
And I think I probably did that a lot actually growing up. Like I've always been a bit of a bigger kid, so I used to probably use like other things like humor, or I'd self-deprecate myself before anyone else can, and that's like your defense
Yeah.
mechanism. So I probably started doing that towards the end of high school. And so by the time school finished, I only had a really small group of friends that I wanted to talk to. And after school finished, that's when I started, just being isolated. And then once I did leave that chefing apprenticeship job, I didn't have a job for probably 10 or 11 months. And that really skyrocketed my anxiety levels and depression because I was on my own all the time and just feeling that, I guess maybe as a young male, it's just that stigma you have, or even if it's not there, you put it on yourself and you think, I have to provide, I have to go get a job, I have to do this. I don't know what I want to study, so I have to go and do this. But it's hard when you're a kid because you don't really know what you want to do, and you're sort of expected to know where you want your life to be. And like I always think life is a very long, like people say life's short, and it can be, but if you live your full lifespan, it's quite a long time. So you don't, what's to say you have to just be a doctor or you have to just be this. And I don't know, I just really didn't know. So all the a big combination of things just happened, and I started getting really lonely and depressed, and a lot of my friends didn't talk to me. And so I guess you sort of put that on yourself, and then you start blaming everybody else too. So everyone's your worst enemy, and you just hurt. And then obviously, being bigger, I probably am a bit of a comfort eater as well. So I started really gaining a lot of weight and just not being happy. So I wasn't physically happy or mentally happy. So that's probably my struggles, but I feel like I've got a good grip on those now and have come out of it for the most part.
So Stephen, I'm interested, mate. You've mentioned a couple of things. Growing up, you said you're a bit of a bigger kid, and then talked a little bit about your weight gain when you were going through some really challenging times of mental health issues with depression and anxiety and loneliness and that type of thing and isolation. I'm really interested to find out, what do you feel like was kind of the thing, or maybe a series of things that helped to break that thing that you felt you were stuck in? What do you feel like was kind of a game changer for you, or was it a journey? Maybe walk us through what that looked like.
I think, it's definitely a journey. I think I've had a few, I guess, game changers. It wasn't just one, and that's been my whole journey with God. I think growing up in a Christian home and sort of knowing God for such a long time, I always felt like he was this niggling little voice in the background. So I always had that there as much as I was running from it as well. I think that was always a comfort and a help. But I think probably just telling somebody, like, I don't think I was pretty good at hiding it too. I think a lot of comedians are like that too. They are so funny and and out there on the outside, but on the inside, people don't know that they're so broken. So I was probably pretty good at hiding it and masking it and doing what teenagers do, drinking a lot, like binge drinking and doing all that. And I think I used to get so anxious that I couldn't like physically go to work. And
Yeah.
I just one day I just started breaking down. I was working with my brother and he was my boss, and come out of the room and I'm just like, I can't do it. And he's like, what do you mean? And I think I was in my undies and I was just crying. I'm like, I can't come in. And he didn't know what was wrong. And the other friend that I was living with, he's like, oh, you're not depressed. Like, but I think back then, even 10 years ago, people didn't really know. So I think I just started telling people, like, my mum used to be a high school chaplain. So I told her and she just
Yeah.
straight away knew what to do. She took me to a GP
Yep.
To get some help, and just went from there, like talking to psychologists and then, but again, it's a journey, so it wasn't just like a quick fix. It's ongoing, you know.
Yeah.
But I think that was the main sort of thing, is just a few of those sorts of instances. Or one night, like I was just really down in the dumps and lonely, and I had been drinking, and I was just so adamant that I was going to kill myself.
Yeah.
And I sort of was thinking, how can I do it? What would be the way? And I sort of found myself trying to, I don't really know how to explain it. I was up over a balcony trying to like choke myself on the
Yeah.
balcony. And then I just had this like, oh, what am I doing? Like, and it was a few of those sorts of ones. And that was when I was really adamant that I needed to get help. And then I actually started really doing well. And then I had one of my best friends from school got killed in a car accident.
Wow.
And that I was working away a lot then, which was starting to build up a lot of my anxiety as well. I was working in those sort of mining campsite things that
Yeah.
it sort of feels like you're at work 24/7, and I just could
Yes.
not break from work. And so I could feel my anxiety levels sort of bubbling up again. And then I was actually driving back to her funeral, and it was a really sad accident. Actually, her and another girl from Pittsworth, they were really good at basketball, and they got killed in a car accident. And so the funeral for the other girl, who I didn't know too well, was on that day. And I was sort of driving back and feeling sorry for all my friends and all that, and just not really paying attention. And I actually had a car accident of
Oh,
my own, and I
yeah.
was okay, but it was very embarrassing and like scary. And I think that's when another culmination of like depression and anxiety just came out of that. Like the PTSD of that just brought up all these emotions that I'd been doing really well with. So there was just like a few moments like that where I'm like, this is breaking point now. I really need
Yeah.
to get some help. And I had to take months off work to recover from that. And still like working in a place of, I was in the construction industry, and you're working with a team of Aussie blokes, and they just don't understand that stuff. But like, luckily it was sort of like a thing for them to realize, oh, this actually goes on. And it
Yeah.
was actually good. It was able to help them too with stuff that has gone on in their life. So with the mental health, there are definitely things that probably,
That were
I guess,
helpful.
yeah. And then
Yeah.
you sort of forced to reach out for help then.
Yeah.
But I think reaching out for help is the number one thing you can do for mental health. And I guess the physical health, I just saw myself in the mirror one night from a certain angle, and I just thought, this is it. I can't look like this anymore. I was starting to get like worried leaving the house of how I looked all the time. Not
Yeah.
quite like agoraphobic, but I just really had anxiety just leaving the house because of how I looked, and I couldn't find clothes that fit. And I, probably didn't look as bad as what I thought I did. But when you're stuck in that loop of, um, yeah, putting yourself down and all that, it's just this big um, culmination of things. And I just saw myself in the mirror and I said, that's it. Monday, things are changing. And then it just happened from there. But even that was a big um, mental health thing for me, because then I came consumed with losing that, and I lost even more friends, because that was my lifestyle. Then it was get up in the morning at 10 to 4 in the morning every morning, and had this routine, and it was really good. And I thought that would solve all my problems, losing weight. But then it didn't. It added more, because then I started getting attention from people then. And then I'm like, oh, this is good. And so it's like this false attention, and not really realizing that I still had this sort of hole in my heart, that it was Jesus saying, I can fill these voids, not these
Mm.
other people, not these quick fixes that you think are going to work. So it was just it's been a long journey, I guess, so to
Yeah.
speak. And it's ongoing. Like, it's not something that I would say I'm 100% on top of. I think those sorts of things stick with you for a while, and you just have to
Yeah.
keep going through it over time.
Yeah. It sounds to me a lot like, Jesus is saying, come back to me and depend on me,
Mm,
even as you're on this journey, just to continue to journey with him throughout that whole process as well. You said something, Stephen, early on in the conversation that I really would love to maybe focus in a little bit on, before we dive into the brand and the clothing line, which I absolutely love. I'm super stoked to talk about it. But you said, a lot of young people are kind of, there's this unspoken pressure maybe from society that they should know what they want to do with their life,
mm,
and as a young person, 17, 18, 19 years old, like oftentimes I remember back to my age, that age of my life, and I wasn't absolutely certain of what I wanted to do, and quite frankly, what I was certain of wanting to do at that stage of my life, I haven't done for 20 years now. So I
yeah.
started off in something and even studied at uni for it, and I haven't been a PE teacher for 20 years. But what was it that maybe helped you to begin to discover what it is that you do want to do? Because you've now discovered a passion, you've discovered something that you really love, and not only that you love, but it's making a huge difference in people's lives. So maybe walk us through the process from not knowing what you wanted to do to discovering this passion and this purpose that you have now.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, because where you are kids when you go through that, and that's one thing I've sort of starting to realize. And another thing we sort of talk about with our brand and stuff is that kids are in such a hurry to grow up, and it's gone back from years like when we like all the world wars. Like young men were just going off to die. Really, like they're just kids, and you're not supposed to be exposed to that sort of thing or the pressure. So you just really need to go easy on yourself as you're growing up, because like I'm 29 now, and I still like now I'm only just starting to realize, okay, I think this is what I really want to do. Like I think I've always sort of had the idea of a clothing line in my head, but that wasn't something that I thought, no, that's what I really, really want to do. I think it was hard because I just would drift through life. I just felt like I was drifting, and I had good jobs, and I was a soil technician, so testing soil for buildings and roads and that sort of thing. And I did that for nearly 10 years and still didn't know what I had. And I just, that used to really get me down as well. Like, God, what, get angry at God like it was his fault, forgetting to say thank you for providing me with an income and a safe life and those sorts of things. I think
You're in good company, by the way, Stephen. There's been quite a few people over the years, followers of Jesus, that get angry at God. I've done it myself and still continue
yeah,
sometimes. But I'm always reminded that King David, if you read his journal in the Psalms, he got angry at God. He was pretty upset with God many times, and he didn't hold back when he wrote in
yeah,
his journal about it. But yet, at the end of the day, God still called him a man after his own heart. So he was a great friend of God, and I think God's big enough to handle our anger and every other emotion that we have as well.
yeah,
So you're in good company, mate. I reckon.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, I don't really know what sort of clicked. I guess I think what was for me is I just really started to get close to Jesus. That's honestly what it was. It's funny. My wife now, I had met her a few years ago, and I knew like sort of when we met that, yeah, there's something about this girl. Like either we're going to be really good friends or we're going to be, married or something. I just had that sort of feeling, and we sort of got, I think we both liked each other, and then we got our wires crossed and just miscommunicated, and she put me in the friend basket, and that was what I was in. But I had been praying for a wife for so long, and just felt like that was another like thing I was angry with God about. Like, what, you have all these plans for me, and I can feel it, and I know that there's more to life, and this is what I'm at. This is where I'm at. This is my job. I'm single, and I'm miserable, blah blah blah. And then I just sort of started to realize, actually, I see her on this high level, and I'm down here. I really need to grow, and I need to actually be a good partner for her. And it was funny with that. That was my, I guess that was my drive to actually really get close to God. And so I just wanted to get close. And after a while, I forgot all about her, and I just started discovering what God had for me. I went and our like Highlands has a really good freedom ministry, like a prayer ministry, and I went and just sort of sought healing, and I learned a lot about myself. And that's when I really started discovering what our life purpose is, and that's to disciple others. That's what Jesus came and said after he rose from the dead. He came to the disciples and said, I want you to go out and make disciples of all nations. And I sort of thought, well, how do I do that? And there's so many passages in the Bible, like the one with the coins always comes to my mind, where the master comes and gives his servants the different coins according to their ability. And I felt like, no, I don't love this job, but that's what God has for me to do. And he obviously wants me there for a reason. So what do you want, God? And that's when I started I thought, that's my life purpose. I don't need to worry about, what it is, whether I'm playing football, I'm playing music, or I'm at work. I'm just going to start being a disciple. I'm going to start following Jesus, and I'm just going to be a normal human who makes mistakes. I don't have to be perfect. Jesus is with me. I'm just going to be filled with him and see what he can do. And then after a while, and probably 3/4 of my workplace started coming to church or didn't even come to church. And I was able to they gave their life to Jesus in the workplace, just over the tools and those sorts of things. And that's when I sort of started not worrying about the purpose. And then the more I kept praying and had the idea for the business, that really started creeping up, and it just was something at just the right time. And my wife came along, and that's what sort of she does for a living. So she was able to really help me, and that was it. Just the purpose came out of that, really. And then it was just learning what life is, and that's sort of where the purpose came out. I don't think there was ever a defining moment where I'm like, this is, because that is my purpose. Because I may not have this clothing line in 10 years, but I'm always going to have Jesus, and he still wants me to go and disciple people. So that I guess is my life's purpose. And we've just got to use the silver coins that God gives us, whether it be half a coin, it be 20 bags full of coins. That's what he wants us to do. And so that's really what I thought my purpose is, and it still is. I don't think my purpose is to own a clothing line. It's not. It's just to be a disciple, and that's what I'm trying to do. And then I've sort of put my love of clothing and the lessons that he's taught me and put it in, and that's how I'm going to disciple.
It's so powerful, Stephen. Somebody listening to the podcast wondering, what's my purpose in life? I don't know what I'm getting up in the morning to do. And it sounds to me like as you began to lean into your relationship with Jesus, he began to open your eyes to exactly what he put you on the earth to do. And as you began to lean in more and more, he's opened these opportunities for you to connect with people and to point people to Jesus, and to even allow some to begin their journey with Jesus, which is just amazing, mate. I love that. Well, let's talk about Antihaste, mate. I love the name. I absolutely love the name. I remember the first time it popped up on my Instagram feed, because I think of the mutual friends in Toowoomba that you are connected with. And you mentioned Highlands. We'll link to this in the show notes, but a fantastic church in Toowoomba. Highlands Church is just fantastic. I love Ken and Doug and the whole team there are just doing an incredible job. And again, we'll put links to all that in the show notes for people so they can track along with Highlands, because it's such a great community of people there in Toowoomba. I absolutely love the team there. But tell us about the backstory behind the name. So Antihaste, again, I love it. I think people kind of get the concept, but tell us the backstory on the name, and then maybe just tell us about some of the ideas of your recent designs and some upcoming designs. But start with the name. What's the backstory?
I guess the name probably came from, I actually used to make a little bit of electronic music on my laptop, and I just sort of started trying to put it out there and had a few different names. And this was when I was really broken and lonely and stuff. So my name used to be Anti-Sapien. So I was just against all humans, and I wanted to be on my own and be by myself. And then I just sort of, I don't know, I started realizing that, all these things that I was going through, they take time, and I just have to be patient. And it just kept coming up all the time through all my readings. God was just saying, be patient, wait on me. This is what I'm going to do in your life, but you have to be patient. I started reading all the stories of like Abraham and Moses, and nearly every biblical story focuses on patience. And I'm like, and then it's just like, but like I was thinking the world is so full of haste, and it's just so, everything's now, give me now. There's Afterpay, there's credit cards, there's, loans, all this thing. And I just like Anti-Sapien, and I'm like, no, I'll go with Anti-Haste. And I just sort of thing, and I started doing that. And then I thought, I've always wanted to have a clothing line. I sort of wanted to have that because I couldn't fit into clothes, and I really liked clothes and fashion and style and stuff. So I'm like, I would love one day to have my own clothing line, but I don't want it to just be, you know, anything. I want it to mean something. I want it to be like something, because I think that's the sort of things that people buy into. They want to buy into the brand, not just or the message, not just the shirt sort of thing. And it just sort of came together. And so I always just had it in the back of my head, and I was just like, that'd be a cool idea for a clothing line one day. And then probably as I was learning more lessons and things, I'm like, oh, that's a slogan. That's a slogan.
Yeah.
I could use this. I could, oh yes, yeah. You know, I'll use the Galapagos tortoise because it's, you know, it lives really slow and it dies really old. And all these ideas just started coming in. And I just kept it in. I just kept it bottled up because that was my one thing that I just didn't want to put out there in case it failed, sort of thing.
I love that.
Yeah, so that's
The
where the
fear of
name came
failure.
from.
The
Yeah,
fear of failure. There's so many ideas around the world. I guarantee, I know I've got ideas that I haven't put out there, and I'm sure people listening to the podcast are going, yeah, I've got an idea, but I'm not sure I want to put it out there because if it fails,
yeah,
it may look really, really dumb. But
yeah,
man, how many great ideas have never gotten out into the wild just because we're afraid that they might not take off? And at the end of the day, who cares if it fails? The fact that you put it out there is part of the
yeah.
success story, I think. Tell us a bit more about, Stephen. You mentioned the turtle, and you mentioned the, you know, they live slowly and they die old. Tell us about some of your designs, because I'm wearing my favorite one, which is the turtle on the back, which, by the way, I got to tell you, mate, so many people stop me and ask me about the design. And most of the people that ask me, just so you know, are about half my age. So I feel
Wow,
way cooler than I actually am
that's cool.
when I
Yeah.
wear the Antihaste clothing. But yeah, tell us about some of your designs. This one, the live slow, die old, and some of the others that you've got already out, but some that are maybe even coming
Yep.
up as well. Tell us about
So
those.
yeah, the live slow, die old. That was like, it's just the opposite of, you know, the popular catchphrase we hear all the time: live fast, die young.
Yeah.
And I used to live like that. Like when I was masking all my hurts and things, I was like that, binge drinking and, you know, occasional drug use, and just, you know, not looking after myself. And I just started to realize, you know, that is not the way to live. And quick fixes just don't work. They just work temporarily, and that's it. And so I just sort of started to think, you know, what's the opposite of that? Live slow, dull. And it doesn't mean to just not do anything. It just means take care of yourself. Like
Mm.
growing old is actually fun, and you can do it gracefully. And you, like the Bible says, you sort of, as you get older, you let go of your things of youth and you step into new things. And you still can do all the things you did as a kid. You just do them differently. Like my wife and I love having a, you know, a wine and a cheese and some nuts with our, you know, like those sorts of things. And then we go to bed early rather than,
Yeah.
you know, doing that until 5 o'clock in the morning. We're waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning going, that was a good night. And,
Yeah.
you know, so you still do all those things. It's just about it. Live slow, die old literally just means take care of yourself. Because you see it all the time. My mum used to be a funeral director, and especially men in particular, we just work, and then we stop. And then within 2 years, most males are dead because their body just stops, and all they've cared about is work, and that's it. They just go, and then they stop. And that along the way, they're not taking care of themselves. They're not slowing down, living slow. So that's sort of where that design came from. We've got a couple of just plain logo ones out now, and our original tee just sort of has a bit of a poem on the back of sort of what anti-haste means. And our latest autumn collection that's going to be coming out soon features the design I'm wearing, if you can sort of see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on the back, it'll be on Instagram and everything. You'll be able to see is it says persistent patience, and it's got a mountain with a flag at the top. And that was one big thing when I sort of started thinking of the idea of anti-haste. What does it mean? I was really scared that people were going to think I meant just stop and don't do nothing, like just stop, because I don't think that's right. I don't think you're meant to just do nothing with your life. I think you have to set goals, and you have to, you know, you have to live. You can't just go and hide in a cave, because that doesn't work. So that sort of means, you know, to have your life goal, but be patient. You have, you know, it's going to come, but you have to just keep being persistent. And I guess that really came for me with my weight loss journey was being consistent, being persistent. You don't go to the gym and after 1 week look like the Rock. You have to like he has a life that is his whole life. That's what he does. And he's done that, you know, he's in his 50s and he's done that probably since he was a young child. He's just lived a fitness regime. So it goes to anything, you know. If you want to study to be a doctor, you just have to be consistent. You have to be persistent, and you know that you're going to have hurdles along the way, but you have to picture like you're going up a mountain. There's your accomplishment is at the very top, and you have to just keep going. And, you know, you may slip down and you might fall and you don't get anywhere, or a big snowstorm comes and you park there for a week, and then you have to keep going, you know. And a lot of people just give up just before they're right at the top. So
Yeah,
that's sort of where the idea for that design comes out.
Patience. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love the persistent patience t-shirt, by the way. I got one and absolutely love it. It's coming out soon. We'll give more details towards the end of the podcast about that, and how you can actually, as a podcast listener, get in first and get a little bit of a discount, which will be fun. So one of the things you just mentioned, though, Stephen, I think this is really important about the anti-haste message. It's not about doing nothing. And it's not about even stripping goals and expectations from your life, but you've set yourself a goal of creating a clothing company, and essentially you've got deadlines you have to meet. Like you've got design deadlines, you've got print deadlines, you've got shipping deadlines and distribution, and you got to put it on the internet so people can buy it. So I'd love to know, mate, how did you even get started? Maybe somebody's listening to the podcast and they're not looking to start a clothing company, but they've got that idea that maybe they're a little bit fearful to put out into the world. How did you get started? Do you need startup funds? How did you even go about making this dream a reality? Even though it was patient and it was slow and it was plodding, you had to hit some goals. How did you do it?
Yeah. So, I mean, haste has its place, but I think what we're trying to say as anti-haste is just stop for 2 seconds before you pull that trigger. Is this the right decision I'm doing? Is this going to benefit me? Because sometimes you got to make a decision. You know, a car's coming on the road and you're not standing on the road. Do I go left or do I go right? You got to move. But I think just starting it, that was one thing probably held me back as well. Like, where do I go? What do I do? I just sort of started researching, and I'd seen some people I know sort of start some. Like we have a really useful tool called Google, and I was Googling a lot. And then I just sort of started, I knew that, you know, I don't have any real sewing skill or anything like that. I did a little bit in home ec in school, but, you know, I haven't sewed for probably 15 years or something like that. But I, just sort of started researching, okay, so I'm not going to be able to sew. So I'm going to have to buy t-shirts and then get them printed first. And that's when I sort of, I didn't go anywhere because I just really didn't know. And I thought, you know, I've got dreams of this being really big. So how do I put in place all the measures to do that? And then, so once I told my wife about the idea and she said, let's do it. This is while we were still dating. We had to put that on pause because we then got engaged and we bought a house and all those things. You know, we had to make quick decisions sometimes and deadlines, but it's just being patient and just spending a bit of time with Jesus and slowing down first and doing that. And then, we just started researching, and the whole time I didn't know, but my wife had actually been praying that we would just, with this business, that God would just provide people to help us along the way. And we were at a suitcase rummage thing. I don't even remember what it was really, or something like that, at like a mental health place in Toowoomba that Anna was doing. And we ran into a guy that I went to school with who was 2 years younger than me. And he said, we were just talking. I said, what are you up to, you know, with your life? And he was a lawyer. And he said, I'm moving down to Brisbane and I'm going to start up my own sub branch of this lawyer, and we're going to focus on startup businesses. And I was like, wow, that God was just like, and like, this was still, it was just an idea.
Yeah.
And I said, I've got to connect with you. So I connected with him on LinkedIn. I just said, can you help me? Do you have any advice? And he just did so much stuff. He just gave us all the different types of company types you can have, you know, whether you want to do it sole trading or whether you want to do a partnership or own a company and that sort of thing. So then we just started putting those sorts of plans into action. We thought, you know, it's all well and good to have these designs and things, but we want to have a company first. So, you know, our dreams are to get big. So let's have it so that we don't need to do that later. We'll spend a bit of money first. you do have to, I guess it depends how you want to start. You can do it really easily and just be a sole trader and start sewing from home and make your own clothes, put it on a website, get your ABN, and off you go. But we wanted to sort of do it a bit bigger than that from the get-go. So we researched blank apparel. We're really big on having our clothes made ethically. So we wanted to make sure that the people that were making our clothes, it's not made by slave labor. We try to be as sustainable as we can too. Like I think the fashion industry is in the top 3 of the most polluting industries because there's so much waste. And not only is there waste, of materials, but of people and how they make them. And it's sad. So we really sort of wanted to be a bit different. And obviously we're not fully there yet. We're only a very small company, but there's sorts of things that we research. So Google is a really big help. But even just if people like myself, like I'm more than happy if people ever want to reach out and message us and ask how we did it. I can point you to the direction of the people who had helped us. That's sort of how we started. We just sort of started looking at, the Australian government websites. How do you own a business? That's just as simple as how do I start a business in Google? And all these things come up. That's literally how we did it. And we just started. I didn't know how to do the designs. I had the design in my head, and my wife that's what she does for a job. She does a lot of graphic design and things. So she just said, here's the program I use, sort of gave me a few pointers. And then I just started doing it. So all the designs we do are all drawn by my finger on the touchpad. And then she comes in and she's like, I call her the font queen. She just knows everything about fonts and she comes and helps with those sorts of things. And then we had our designs and then we went and approached some screen printing companies and people who can actually get your clothes. They can do all that for you. So there's so many different ways. There's just like 100 different ways you can do it. This is just the way we chose to do it. So, but yeah, like you said, that takes time. There's deadlines and everything. It's like a normal business, I guess. But when God's with you, things just happen. Sometimes you're like, man, how did we get that? Or, about the money, you do need a bit of money. Like we had savings saved up and we used that, which was a bit of a risk. And it's all how much you want to put into it. If you want to put thousands and thousands of dollars in and have really good quality things, that's fine too. If you can start quite small too. So there's so many different ways to do it, but I guess it's not something that you think of really. Is it like you just, it's only until you really want to do it, you'll find answers, I think. Like anything in life.
So you said before, Stephen, that you guys structured the business from the get-go for scaling it to a little bit bigger, not just a sole trader, but you've structured it so that it can grow. What are some of your dreams and goals for Antihaste? Like, where would you love to see it? And I know maybe inside of you, even right now, as you're being asked that question, like, well, if I tell people what I really think, maybe if I don't get there, I'll seem like a failure. But mate, put it out there. What are your thoughts? What do you dream of this thing looking like?
I really want it to be successful. Obviously, I don't think people start business to not be successful. If you're starting a business and you don't want to go anywhere with it, I don't really think there's a point. But we want to be global. At the moment, we're available in Australia and in Spain. Only, as I said earlier, my wife's from Spain, so we have family over there, and we want to be able to let them get our stuff as well. But just because we're so small and the amount of stock we have, shipping costs is just ridiculous. So, but obviously, my short-term goal is to get quite as big as we can in Australia. I'm a big fan of Australian business and supporting local, and I think COVID's been really good for that and helping people, realize what we can actually do in the countries we are from, instead of looking to export all the time. So my big goal is to be global and to actually make our own clothes. Being like we've talked about, a bigger person, I would love to make clothes that are very inclusive for all different builds. I don't know if I can find that perfect shirt fit that just fits everybody. I would love to do that and continue to use, as much organic materials as we can and support ethically made clothing. But that's my big goals, is to be able to make it, to manufacture it, to ship it from warehouses, and to get the message of Antihaste as big as we can. I think the world is so full of the opposite message that, that's where I want to go, just to be as big as we can and to get God's word out there as far as we can.
I love, Stephen, the fact that this anti-haste message, it ties in so well with what we talk about here on the podcast. You know, the tagline of the podcast is helping people reach their goals without losing their soul. And the speed and the pace of life these days, I think, is literally doing violence to our souls. And like you said, a lot of people just go, and they get to the end of their life, they retire, and they don't even get to enjoy retirement because they pass on. Or and maybe, you know, we could actually live a little bit more like we're retired before we retire. How about that? That would be a great thing to practice as well. So, mate, I would love for you to just share with the podcast being all about not just reaching your goals and starting a company and seeing a dream come to life, but also really caring for your soul and not losing that along the way. I know soul care is a major priority for you and for Anna, and for, you know, it's a foundation of your business and your brand. What are some of the practices and rhythms that you personally participate in, maybe as a couple or even as an individual? And then what are some of those rhythms and practices you participate in as a business, just to keep your soul healthy as well?
I think personally, you know, it is tough because we, as much as we promote this too, it's as much for Anna and myself as well. Like, I put this shirt on and it's got to remind me, like, I'm probably one of the most impatient people you'll meet. And like I was saying earlier, these are the lessons that God is teaching me. And so I'm like, okay, I need to teach this. And I hear a lot of preachers say that too when they're preaching their message. You know, this is for me as much as it is for everyone else. So don't know if I do anything different to anyone else. I think the one thing that always helps me is starting my day with Jesus. Even if it's, you know, getting your Bible app on your phone, the YouVersion Bible app, and just reading the verse of the day, because like life is busy sometimes and you don't, like, you know, you're traveling or you're doing those sorts of things, just spending like a minute doing that or praying. I try to sort of start my day with half an hour to an hour just by myself, just out in the living room. I'll just have a coffee or a tea and I spend time with God, and I just have some me time. It might be me on my phone. It could be me not doing anything. I could just be sitting there. I could be watching TV. I could put the PlayStation on. It's just me time. And I invite God into that time. And if he wants to tell me something in that time, great. If not, I'll just sit there and I'm going to play a game. And I'm just going to switch off and I'm going to do what I'm doing. That's one thing I like to do. Or at the end of the day, I always try to, when I was leaving work or a workplace, I just ask that God just takes the day away, you know, that the day is done, wash it off me. I want to come home and I want to be there for Anna when I get home, and the cats, you know, or whoever, wherever I'm going. I was living with my brother and sister-in-law and their kids, and I always used to pray on the way home, like, just make me available. I want to just have fun with them when I get home. So that's one thing I do personally. Together, Anna and I, we like to watch movies. Her family are big movie buffs, and I have come to really enjoy that with her. Like, Mondays is normally the only day we actually get to work together on the business, and we try to do half. We try to watch a movie and we try to work and do all our housework and work on the business, and then sort of by about 2 or 3 o'clock, we like to sit down and actually I let her choose a movie. My movie choices don't end up always being the best, but she finds the good movies, and we just like to sit down and just that's what we do when we watch a movie. And we just spend time with each other. I think that's an important thing going into business with your wife, is we just try to, you know, remember that we are married and that we do love each other and we are best friends and we want to spend time together. So, you know, we can get a bit cranky with each other and stuff sometimes, but that's one of the practices we do, is anytime we have a small win, we celebrate. I think you know, it might just be we go and eat out lunch, or it's just like, yay, we did something good. We just take a conscious effort to say, good job. We, like, you know, even when there was little steps coming back in and it didn't really feel like much was happening when we're signing all the paperwork, like so much paperwork goes into like starting a business, and we don't even have an office. Like, we operate from home, so we didn't have to do any of that paperwork, but all the other stuff, like filing for a trademark and doing all that stuff. So when those things started coming back, like, congratulations, you own a business now, or congratulations, you have a trust, we would be like, awesome, like, this is happening. And we'd just do like something really little. And when we first, every time we do a launch, we like to get a little bit of wine and we just celebrate and just have a glass of wine each. It's like, you know, and I'm sure the more that they happen, we'll get used to it. But we always want to just make sure that we're remembering to just take time out and celebrate. And I guess another thing I was just thinking as I was talking, then I really have found, I've only just started, again, another thing for fear of failing. I've only just started playing guitar at Highlands, and it's been ever since post COVID, because sort of the guitar numbers were going down, and I was hearing me play at home, and she's the worship pastor. She says, like, I think you're going to join the team. And all of a sudden I'm just in the team and I've been playing, and I've just really found that restores my soul, like being up on stage, because that was another dream I had as a kid of being like a rock star. You know, I think a lot of kids have those sorts of dreams, and I just love it. I really feel like I'm closest to God when I'm doing that. And that was something I never would have, that's not who I thought I was. And so I find even when I'm learning the songs, because I honestly don't even listen to that much worship music. I never have, but I've only just started doing that. And I find that just really restores me too, just actually learning a song that's about God. And then all of a sudden I'm like, this song's really good. And I'm just playing it on the, you know, in the car rides, and I'm doing all that sort of thing. So I find those sorts of things help. And when we go on holidays, I really like to just do nothing. Depending on what type of holiday is you're going on, whether it's a travel one, I'm up for traveling. But if it's just a relaxing holiday, I like to just relax until I can't relax anymore. We went on one at the start of the year, and I'm like, you know what? I'm pretty over just laying down. I want to get up and do things. So I think you need to take time out and just actually do nothing. Like, but people are scared to do nothing. I think because you know, you're on your phone so much. That's another thing we do. We put our phones away, or Anna likes to put hers on flight mode so that she doesn't get any messages, so that when we're with each other, or when we go and spend time with our family, or when we have to Zoom call over to our family in Spain, we are with them. That's all we're talking to. Our phones are away, the business is away. You know, the business is going to stay there. All the things you think are going to disappear when you turn your phone off are all still there. All
It's still there when you turn them back on. Yeah.
You know, work can wait, because I think that's another thing. You know, smartphones and technology is so good, but we're so accessible to everybody all the time, and we need to just learn how to actually turn them off, put them aside, and actually just be with each other. And I think that's the main thing that we try to do. I guess long version short is remember that we are married, and that we're in a partnership with us and God, and we just need to keep inviting him into everything we do, and spending time with each other, and just making sure we chill out and actually live the message that we're trying to teach people, because it's so easy to not do that and be hypocritical and get worried about sales and worried about, you know, Instagram numbers and all those things that society tells you to worry about. It's so easy. Like, I find myself doing it all the time. So I have to really remind myself while I'm wearing the shirts as well to just chill out a little bit.
Yeah. So good, mate. I love hearing the practices that you and Anna are putting into place. And I commend you and cheering for you guys as you do that. You've got a clothing release happening today. Actually, the podcast is being released on the same day as one of your clothing lines. Why don't you tell us which one is it? And then I'd love for you to just share with listeners how they can get their hands on the products.
Yeah, so we're launching our second autumn collection. We've done one a couple of weeks ago, and now as it's really getting into autumn, we're having our second autumn capsule collection coming out. So we've got the Persistent Patience shirt that I was talking about earlier, and it's sort of a natural color. It's a bit of an off-white. It's sort of a bit when you put it up next to white, it's a little bit creamier, but it's not fully cream or tan. It's a really nice material, 100% organic cotton. So they, like you were saying earlier, they're so soft. I've had some people say they feel like butter when you put them on. Or
they really do, mate.
Yeah,
so soft.
So we've got that one coming out, and then we have just a classic logo tee. This time it's in mauve, so it's like a bit of a purple color with just the logo across the front. So they're the two that are coming out. We try to release, you know, one or two at a time, so that we're not just mass producing clothes all the time. So that's the collection that's available now. And to get your hands on those, you can go to antihaste.com.au. That's the best place to find us and read all about our story and actually purchase the shirts. But any of our social media will lead you to the website. So Instagram at Antihaste, and Facebook is Antihaste Clothing, and they'll have links to get you there. We're at the moment trying to set up Facebook shop and everything, so you can just purchase them from there. but yeah, that's where we're at now. So yeah,
Okay.
the website is the best place to purchase those from.
And spell anti-haste for us, just if somebody's listening and they're like, okay, what is that?
Yep. So Antihaste, anti and haste put together as one word.
Antihaste.com.au
Yep.
for picking up t-shirts. And the second autumn collection releases today, same time as this podcast. And Stephen, you were so kind, so gracious to offer a discount for those that are listening to the podcast listeners. How do people go about getting the discount when they go over to the website?
Yeah, so when you go to checkout, there'll be a little section that says coupon, I believe, or I think it says, yeah, coupon. And so just click on that and type in Perko 15, and you'll get 15% off your first purchase. Yeah, because we'd
so
love
cool.
to.
Yeah, mate. Well, thanks for that. And thanks for being available and making it available to all the listeners to be able to get a discount off the t-shirts. They are honestly softest t-shirt in my closet, and I love the designs. I love the message, and I got to tell you, every time I put it on, it reminds me of the message, you know. And as I wear it, like you said, you know, you walk past a mirror or somebody says something to you or asks you about the logo or whatever, it's just a constant reminder of that value of not living at a super fast pace. Hey, speaking of which, I would love to offer an idea. I have a little mantra. I think I shared this with you in the past. I have a little mantra that I say to myself: life is not a race, live at a slower pace. So maybe that could find itself on an Anti-Haste t-shirt one day. That would be a dream come true for Perko, that's for sure.
Yeah, we'll set up a little profit margin for you there, and we can put you as one of the creators there. Yeah,
I can get maybe 2 cents a t-shirt or something like that. That'd be great. So if people would like to connect with you, Stephen, not just the brand and the clothing, we've talked about that already, but you personally, follow your, you know, how would they follow along your journey? And if they've got questions about, you know, some of the things that you've talked about today on the podcast, mental health, weight loss, you know, practices that you and Anna practice, or even getting a business up and running, what's the best way for people to connect with you online?
Probably the easiest way is just through the Anti-Haste Instagram. That's probably what I'm most active on, or any message goes to Facebook anyway. I think it's all connected now. That's probably the easiest way to catch that. I don't have a really big personal Instagram. I'm more on that one. So that's the best way. And it'll always be myself that's talking on there.
Great.
And if I need to, I can share you my other one. But yeah, that's the easiest way.
Okay, that'd be great.
Even through email at hello@antihaste.com.au. It'll always be either myself or Anna that messages it back, but 99% of the time it's me on the other end. So
yeah, cool. That'd be great. Well, if people are listening to the podcast and you got questions for Stephen about anything we've talked about today, I think it'd be great for you to reach out to him. Stephen, as we wrap up the conversation, mate, I'd love for you just to share with someone that's listening to the conversation that we've had today. What do you want people to take away from this conversation? What would you, if there's one thing you hope that they would take away and remember from the conversation today, what would it be?
I'd say that quick fixes don't work. You have to learn to be patient, and then be patient, and that is a journey that you're going to learn for a long time. It's not something that you can learn overnight. That's the very nature of being patient. I think that, yeah, you know, you can mask anything with a quick fix, whether it be your phone, whether it be food, whether it be, you know, sex, whether it be drugs, any of those sorts of things. They can help you for a little while if you even think they help, but at the end of the day, you have to learn other things and seek Jesus and be patient. I think, you know, I look to Jesus for all the designs come from biblical teaching. You know, I even look at Jesus speaking about being patient, and I always think, you know, he was born the King of Kings and has this high expectation put on him, and you don't hear anything until he's like a kid, and then he's preaching to the people in the temple, and then he goes away, and then you don't hear anything until he's sort of my age now, late 20s, early 30s. And I always think, you know, what was he doing in that time? He's a carpenter. He's doing just what we're doing. He's like, I don't want to be a carpenter. I'm God's son. You know, what I always look to him, and he did everything patiently. He never was quick to judge anybody. He was never quick to dismiss anybody. So that is just a lifelong thing that you have to keep learning. And I think for me, I have to learn the same lessons every single day about, I'm patient one day and the very next day I wake up and I want everything done straight away. And I think, man, I just can't, you are here for a long time. And I think the sooner you can learn to, which sounds like a bit of a cop out, the sooner you can learn, but be patient and go easy on yourself. Yeah. I think that's one thing I have to keep reminding myself of, and that Anna has to keep telling me all the time. You're doing better than you think you are. I think that's one thing as people and in society, we try to please people all the time and we try to do all this. Just go easy on yourself, because you are going to make mistakes and you are, you're learning. And if you stop learning, then what's the point of being alive? I want to be learning until I want to learn even still when I'm in heaven. That's what I want to know. I never want to stop learning, which, is scary, but it's fun too. You pray for patience, and it's one of those things you sort of don't want to learn, because it's hard to learn patience because we live in a society that's not patient. So that would be my main takeaway, is to, quick fixes don't work. Learn to be patient and don't be so hard on yourself, because life's meant to be fun, and a life with Jesus is fun. It's not hard. It shouldn't be detrimental, and God loves you more than what you think he does, and he loves you more than you ever could love yourself. So be kind to yourself, I think, is the main thing that you're going to learn.
So good, Stephen. Mate, this has been a fun conversation. As I've already said, mate, I'm a huge fan of Antihaste, the brand, the message behind it, and the products as well. They're so good. I love it. And appreciate you carving out an hour or so of your time just to have a conversation with us here on Perko's podcast. Make sure, if you're listening, to go check out Antihaste and start following them on Instagram. Check out this brand new collection that they've just released, their second autumn collection. Even though it may be spring in the Northern Hemisphere, hey, pick up a t-shirt for fall and you'll be 6 months ahead of everybody else with their fall collections coming out later in the year in the Northern Hemisphere. Make sure you hit them up on social media, and we'd love for you to also hit up Stephen, ask him any questions that you may have regarding the conversation today. Stephen, thanks so much, mate, for being with us on Perko's podcast. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you for the opportunity. It's such a blessing and a pleasure. And I will just say to anyone that's listening overseas, if we can't ship to you yet, let us know, send us a message, because we do want to do that. We just need to have a bit more demand to go overseas more, and we will. Yeah. But yeah, 6 p.m. tonight, the launch drops. So hope to see you. Hopefully I'll be writing a thank you card for you.
Yeah, very cool. All right. Thanks, Stephen. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks. Cheers.